All right, so we got ourselves some Brazil. Now this is a bean that I really love roasted for a low temp espresso. Brazil is like, I think it's got to be the most traditional origin to use for espresso, typically roasted at a higher roast temperature. But you know, people like light roast coffees in espresso as nowadays as much as people like really like heavier chocolatey notes. People love bright and tart. So this Brazil is like incredible bean for this purpose. This is what I use when I'm sending out low temp espresso or somebody's ordering just a low temp Brazil. This is the one that I do. And whether that's to cafes or somebody's ordering through a website or coming in, it's just a great bean for it. So when you roast Brazils, you deal with this, especially if you're going to do a low temp roast. A lot of times, like you've heard me say, low temp roasts are going to be faster roasts, and there's just this trend about like essentially how fast can you possibly roast beans, which how you roast beans fast is you use high heat and high flame and a lot of air. The challenge, or I guess the limits to roasting, speed, is that you get this defect called tipping. Tipping is when it's essentially you've gone too fast, you've pushed the bean too hard, and you have the moisture inside, tucked deep inside the bean, has got so hot, so fast that it needs to leave the bean. The bean is still dense, and it essentially, the moisture burns a hole, burns its way out. And so then you have this area of the bean which is burnt and doesn't taste very good. So all beans you're going to struggle with. If you're roasting them really, really fast, you are going to at some point run into tipping, which the answer is you got to slow down. You just got to slow it down. And the reality is there is so much flavor in these beans. Don't be worried. You aren't going to lose flavor by stretching these roasts out a little bit and developing what's going on inside of there. There's a lot of flavors that you cannot access unless you stretch out the roast a little bit, unless you get to that 9.5, 10, 11 minute low temp roast range. Sure, 8.5 minutes, it's great. 8 minutes even, okay, that's possible with certain beans with a certain outcome, but you need to develop these things more to get more of the flavors out. So with Brazil, Brazils are known for tipping. So you always got to be careful with Brazils for tipping anyways, but especially if you're doing a low temp batch. Some beans you put in the roaster and you hit them with high heat right away. And these beans are not like that. These beans, you're gonna go, I'm gonna take these beans easy, and what that'll end up doing is it's a slower ramp up. So instead of putting the beans in and going to 5 inches of flame, I'm gonna put them in and keep it at 3 inches of flame. It's like, well, that seems like a huge difference, and it is. And I'm doing that because if I go up to 5 inches or 6 inches and then drop it down, that quick push is gonna end up causing tipping. So we're gonna keep it at 3 inches, let it do this long, slow ramp up, and then it's gonna be moving. And right when it gets really moving, that's when I'm gonna cut the flame and just stretch it out until it gets developed to the degree that I'm looking for. So let's do this. I'm gonna start this one right at 400 or just a touch over. I got 12 pounds in the batch. My airflow, I'm gonna again keep it right at 50. Keep it right at 50%. This is like 55%. So that's what I mean. We'll do 55%, starting at just over 400. And like I said, I'm gonna go to 3 inches of flame, which on my roaster, 3 inches is like half flame, half the flame. Oh man, I can hear it. It's really like a harsh bean sound. Now, if I were to turn the flame up, that would become more muted and the sound would become more round. And it's telling you how much heat and flame and like that air that's going through, as these beans are getting kicked into the air and hitting the drum, the air is different, the sound is different. I'm watching this some batches, when you're 45 seconds in, you're already turning around here. This one is still our environmental temperature. This lower temp is still dropping, and I'm coming up to a minute. It's about to turn around right now. There it goes. It just turned around. Now it's increasing. We're a minute in. 212 bean temp. 1 minute, and I'm still at 3 inches, but that was a turnaround. My turnaround of my environment is important to note, and the turnaround of your beans are important to know. And what's the temperature that this turns around? Not just the time. The time of this, a lot of times you're going to see this like between a minute and 30 and a minute and 50. A lot of times it's a minute and 45, this thing starts to turn around. Here we go. It turned around 145. What's the temperature that this turns around? So imagine if this thing is turning around at, it just turned out 192. Imagine if it was 172 or 162 when it turned around. Or 202. These are really, we're like very different speeds. That turnaround temperature is going to tell you a lot about the time that you're going to finish this roast. So if you feel like your roasts are really dragging, really taking a long time, it means you gotta make your turnaround happen at a higher temperature. If your roasts are so fast and you're like, this isn't really good, you got to figure out how to make it turn around at a lower temperature. If I were to have pushed this hard right away, I would be starting to pull it back. But since I left my flame at a lower setting, I'm going to let this thing push and push and push and push and push until, you know what, honestly, I'd like to get 100 degrees on this. I'd like to have this go up to 330 degrees before I'm really pulling back my flame. That means that I've got minutes into this thing of like a nice, steady, non-aggressive, but consistent heat source. And how that ends up developing the bean is totally different than if you push really hard right away and begin pulling back, okay? They've started to liven up. You can see that they're taking on some color, some white traits to it. It's about 250 degrees for the bean temperature, but there's no tipping already. You would see tipping and really uneven coloration on the beans, but they look nice and even. I don't want really high environmental temperature, and I don't want to get there very fast. Those are the two things that make you tip. But right now, I really like the pace. I'm still increasing by 0.2, 0.3, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, 0.3. Perfect. We're doing good. It's all good. We're just going to be coming into yellowing here. Let's take, ooh, look at those. They still got some green in there. Still got a little green. You can smell, they have that like yeasty, bready smell starting to come off of them now. 5 minutes, 10 seconds, 300 degrees. 447 for the environmental temperature, and I'm calling that the yellow phase. And now I'm going to begin to like stretch this thing out. So I'm gonna just take, I don't know, it might be a minute that I'm slowly moving my flame down, nice and steady. And I'm gonna bring it down and bring it down and bring it down. I want it to not be herky-jerky. I want this thing to coast out nice and smooth. The whole thing needs to be smooth because I want the flavors to just be pristine, to be smooth flavors. So you gotta roast smooth, and I have to create an environment there that's smooth. Here we are. I went down. I'm at 6 minutes and 25 seconds. 335 degrees. 452 for the environment. So I got there. I got to 330, which is I want. My environmental temperature is now decreasing. It's going down. No problem. That's fine. So I'm not worried about the temp. We're at 450 degrees. That's the big number is what's important right here. That's plenty of heat to finish this roast out. I'm not going to stall it. But now I'm looking at our bean temperature, 350. Okay, I got 25 degrees until we hit first crack. So I got about a minute. And then I'm wanting to like give myself some space after first crack to get to that 392, 396. I want to create space in my roast so that I can get to that finished roast temp, which is low, and have like not tipped these beans, but develop them and preserve the acidity. So we've turned around here again on my environmental temp. So I'm going to pull back the flame just knock it off. Every time it wants to get up, I'm just going to knock it off just a little bit. Nothing drastic. But I got to check it to be sure it's going to go down. Oh, it's still going up. So I just knock it down again by like 0.2 of an inch. All right, perfect. So 370, we're just about to enter into first crack. We're 3 minutes. This second phase of this roast, we've been in for 3 minutes. It'd be great if we got to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Nice solid second phase, and then I can keep that third phase kind of tight. Okay, 830, 379, 450, first crack. All right, we're looking at this. How fast is it going up? Oh, it's moving, and this is increasing too. So this is what I was talking about. The beans exotherm, they push out heat while they're hitting first crack. Now I'm totally cutting back my flame. I'm gonna go almost all the way out. You hear the tone change? We're cruising. Look at that. This thing's moving right here, the speed. So we might get ourselves up to 396. Let's smell them as we're going here. All right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that is gonna be some sweet espresso right there. That's some good espresso. Thank you, Brazil. Thank you. Thank you, roaster. Haha. So that's like a 9-minute, 30-second batch. We did 1 minute in the third phase, in development phase. So that was pretty fast, but man, those things took off, which that's why I killed the flame. Once they're in, like fully into first crack, I just pulled that flame back and just let them coast. I could have killed it even earlier. I could have killed that flame just before first crack and let the whole thing coast out. I could have probably got another 30 seconds on development if that's what I had wanted. I'm happy with this. 1 minute for low temp espressos is good. I mean, that's a really good time for development. I mean, you can have that third phase, you could roast for 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, depending on the acidity. Acidity that's really harsh and metallic or vegetal, you want to give those types of acidity more time. So harsh acidity, stretch that out. But when you want the acidity, you want it clean and crisp, this is it. So pretty excited about this. Pretty excited.